Preface of the book IQ, EQ, SQ. Preface. In our highly competitive world, in this 21st century, each of us aspire to get ahead of the others and excel in our respective fields. But in an effort to outdo everyone else, we frequently have to undergo a lot of stress. More often than not, we crumble under the burden of such pressures and are clueless about how to effectively cope with it. The secret of coping with the strains of daily life is to effectively manage our own selves first. Only when we learn to manage our internal environment effectively can we hope to deal with our external environment. And needless to say, to manage ourselves, it is essential to understand the components of our internal environment. If we look into ourselves, we often see that there are many internal conflicts within us. We hear many voices telling us what is good and bad, right and wrong, etc. Whenever we are about to take any decisions, especially important ones, while one voice may say, do it, another may immediately counteract, don't do it. One may wonder what these voices really are. These voices factually represent the various desires and urges we harbor within ourselves. Broadly speaking, these desires and urges can be classified into three categories: the urges of the body, the urges of the mind, and the urges of the intellect. For our easy study, let us personify each of these urges. Let us create three sub-personalities within us. Each one represents the urges of the body, urges of the mind, and urges of the intellect. Let us further call them Mr. Body, Mr. Mind, and Mr. Buddhi, respectively, and analyze the kind of desires they represent. Mr. Body. Mr. Body expresses urges such as hunger, thirst, sleep, etc. When we are hungry, he demands, I am hungry, feed me. When we do not get sufficient sleeps, he demands sleep, and so on. If we analyze carefully, the urges put forth by Mr. Body are of an unignorable nature. In example, minimal bodily urges need to be met at any cost, else normal functioning not just of the body but of the mind and intellect is also stalled. Such urges can be broadly classified into four categories: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Controlling bodily urges mainly involves exercising control over these four bodily activities. One may question, if these urges are natural and necessary, why should one talk about controlling them? Mainly because of our tendency to go overboard when trying to satisfy our bodily requirements. Have not we all at some time or the other overeaten or overslept, for example? Obviously, on these occasions we have given in to the demands of the body rather than restricting ourselves to as much as is needed to meet the bodily demands. Controlling bodily urges calls for higher faculties such as understanding the need for control, determination to control, maintaining one's enthusiasm even if one finds it difficult at times, and so on. Which in turn means that we need to exercise our mental and intellectual faculty to control our bodily urges. In that sense, the mind and the intellect are superior to and capable of controlling the body. Mr. Body, as we call him here, is therefore a subordinate to Mr. Mind and Mr. Intellect. When properly controlled by these two bosses, Mr. Body becomes an excellent worker to fulfill our higher desires. Mr. Mind. Mr. Mind is a personality within us and is potentially superior to Mr. Body. He has the capacity to control Mr. Body. Mr. Mind decides what should be given to Mr. Body and what should not be given. In an ill-managed scenario, Mr. Mind becomes controlled by Mr. Body, and this results in chaos. Mr. Mind has another important role apart from controlling Mr. Body. Mr. Mind expresses its urges from within by seeking relationships. His nature is to seek positive relationship and to reject negative relationship. Suppose a person shows affection, respect, love and care. Mr. Mind wants to associate with and to relate with him and to enhance that relationship. Suppose a person abuses, disrespects and hates us. Then Mr. Mind wants us to move away from that person and to reject such relationships. Thus, Mr. Mind is directly dealing with the emotions in our internal environment. Mr. Mind is in turn controlled by Mr. Buddhi. Mr. Buddhi, this personality within us is rarely recognized in our internal environment because most of the time we are absorbed in the meeting the demands of the body and Mr. Mind. But when the needs of Mr. Body and Mr. Mind are met, the needs of Mr. Buddhi are recognized. If a person has all the needs of his body satisfied, has good relationship, then he starts seeking knowledge. He seeks answer to questions like what is the purpose of this world, what is my role in this world. Thus, the business of Mr. Buddhi is to ask questions and seek answers at various levels. According to the grade of development of intelligence, at the family level, a man asks, what is happening in my family? At the national level, he asks, what is happening in India? At the world level, what is happening to the earth with the level of pollution in the atmosphere? Thus, Mr. Buddhi is always eager to ask questions and seek answers. However, at the highest level of development, Mr. Buddhi asks the meaning of life and strives to seek answers to most fundamental questions about our existence. Let us now understand with an example how these three persons, Mr. Body, Mr. Mind and Mr. Buddhi, play havoc in our lives. Suppose a professor is researching with all his focus absorbed in Mr. Buddhi, and his wife enters at that juncture and calls him for lunch. He would shoo her away as he is absorbed in Mr. Buddhi and so does not care for the demands of Mr. Body and Mr. Mind. But on another day, when he is enjoying a romantic moment with his wife, the same professor will frown at a phone call from his office. The people sometimes become so controlled by the sensual urges that they don't even care for Mr. Mind or heed to the good counsel of Mr. Buddhi. History is replete with the stories of even world leaders who have fallen prey to sensual pleasures. We often face situations of internal conflict among Mr. Body, Mr. Mind and Mr. Buddhi. As discussed in the example above, if Mr. Body says eat, 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 as much as the tongue desires, not caring for the condition of the belly, thinking why not? This is my philosophy of enjoying life. Finally, the system ends up going awry. In fact, this is how the problem of obesity has become such a major cause for concern among youngsters. As they do not effectively manage themselves, they don't even care for their appearance, being overpowered by the demands of Mr. Body. Similarly, if by the overwhelming influence of Mr. Mind, a person becomes so enamored and therefore crazy by a relationship, saying, I love you so much, I don't care for anything, I don't care for this world, he shouts from the rooftops, हमको तुम्हारे बिना जीना नहीं. He is so overpowered by the relational pleasure that he forgets other basic requirements of life, and he is not even able to earn a livelihood for himself. This craze will, however, remain only as long as the chemicals generating these emotions are active. When the chemicals are lost, then all the emotions are also lost. After some years, he thinks, oh my god, what all I had thought, what all I had dreamed. But now this relationship is a big burden upon me, which I have to carry all my life. Therefore, now we can understand the result of an ill managed self. We need to understand that when unregulated, one of these personalities within ourselves will enjoy at the cost of others. So, there has to be effective self management, which means regulation of these three, whereby we can attain the desired objective of happiness. This can be done only with the help of intelligence, more precisely spiritual quotient. In this book, we teach the art of effectively managing Mr. Body, Mr. Mind, Mr. Buddhi by accurate use of a well nurtured SQ.